Hey everybody, Nick from KeyWoodWorks, and today I'm going to show you how I improved my router table's dust collection with a really simple jig to make it suck better. Well, you know what, that sounds a little weird. Let's just go with better dust collection when I'm using these giant flush trim bits from Bits and Bits. Now I will leave links in the description below for those bits because they are amazing. But here's what it looks like when I am freehand routing on my router table with these giant compression bits. They just throw dust everywhere and make a huge mess. Doesn't matter if it's a top bearing bit or a bottom bearing bit, which I'm still not really clear on which one's which. If you know, leave a comment in the description below. I'm pretty sure that one's a top bearing, but anyways, when I'm done using them, I gotta spend a lot of time cleaning up. That's a huge mess, and that's only one pass on this guitar blank. And I gotta make another one, which means I'm gonna make another mess. So I decided I need to come up with a simple solution to mitigate all of that dust. Now, as you can see there on the bottom left of the screen, that is my prototype for this dust port, and it was just simply made out of 3/4 inch plywood slapped together, just kind of as a proof of concept, but it was pretty ugly, so I wanted to make this nice with some Baltic birch plywood that I had left over as just some random scrap. And I also had this extra mag port that I don't even know why I ordered this. I must have been thinking I was going to use it for something, but I'm kind of glad I had it on hand because it was the perfect solution for this. It's a 2.5 inch mag port, and it's perfect for my router table because I already have a dust hose that's a 2.5 inch dust hose that I connect to the fence for when I'm doing anything with the fence on the router table. But like I said earlier, this is going to be primarily used for when I am freehand routing. So what you see me doing is just kind of making some tracing of that mag port, and then I'm just going to kind of make some lines for what I think will be a good base of this dust port. I'm not even really sure what I want to call this. It's pretty much a dust port in my opinion, but if you got a better name, let me know. I'm open to suggestions. I'm not married to dust port, but anyways, once I got everything traced out, I took it over to the bandsaw and got it cut out, and that's going to be the bottom piece. And then I'm going to come over and trace this second piece on my other piece of Baltic birch plywood. I mentioned this is going to be Baltic birch. I have 2 3/4 inches, and it's going to be stacked on top of each other to give it a little bit of height, and then also be able to sink those mag switches that you see there onto each side so I can then place it anywhere on top of my cast iron router table. So as you see here now, I'm just going to be tracing out for the second layer, which is the top layer, and making sure that I leave room that I can sink those mag switches on both sides. And then I'm going to take that piece over to the bandsaw and cut it out to those lines. And I don't have to be really exact here because it's just a shop project. This isn't like a final client build or anything. This is just to help me for dust, so it doesn't have to look super pretty, even though I'm gonna make it nicer in the end. I don't really care a whole lot about its form, but I do care about its function. So now that I just traced where the top layer is going to be sitting on top of the bottom layer, I take it off, get a good look at it, but let's put it back because I need to actually trace out where the mag port is going to go because it will be sitting on the top layer in the end here. So I need to trace out where this is going to sit so then I can drill it out after I get it glued up and eventually pin nailed. But I need to trace it out here, get a good look, and make sure it's in the center-ish of this top layer. Now I'm not like overly concerned with how much glue I'm going to use, so I'm just going to put just one single bead. I'm not even going to spread it out, and then I'm going to place the top layer on top, kind of get it situated where I think is good. It doesn't have to be flush on any of the sides because I will flush that up here in a little bit, but then I'm going to throw a couple pin nails around, just 23 gauge pin nails just to hold it as the glue dries. And I actually end up hitting one of those pin nails with my flush trim bit, but didn't hurt it because the bit's a beast from Bits and Bits. Link in the description below, like I said. Now it was time to bring it over to the drill press with the most monster Forstner bit that I had, which happened to match up to the exact size of that center hole for that dust port, but it took forever, and I'll spare you watching me drill all the way through, and it was not a clean cut, so don't be looking for any links in the description for that Forstner bit. It's not worth buying. In fact, I think I threw it out after I used it to cut that one hole. But something that is worth buying, these Owl overdrive bits, that is 1.25 inches that just chewed through that plywood and actually left a really, really clean cut on both the entrance and the exit side of the holes. Man, I am super impressed with those drill bits. They are really nice. But now I've moved on to tracing out the center section where I'm going to cut out all of that plywood to make room for where the chips will come in and then be collected at that 2.5-inch mag port. Is that right? Is it a mag port? Can I say mag port? I don't know. I guess that's what it is. But that's what you see me doing. I'm cutting out that center section there on the bandsaw, and now I'm going to take it back over to the router table, which is a perfect example of what I'm trying to fix here. Look at that mess. Man, it just throwing chips, and that's not even a really big cut. I'm just taking off a hair to flush up both the top and bottom layers of those two pieces of plywood. That's a really, really small cut, and it's still a big mess. So hopefully this will alleviate that problem, and spoiler alert, it does. I'm shocked. It really does help a ton. I mean, it's not perfect, but you'll see here in a little bit. So after I get all of this flushed up on all of the sides, I bring it back over to the bench. And now it's time to install these mag switches and the mag port. But there's just one thing wrong. Hands on my hips, that's the international sign for I'm not liking it. And what I don't like is how tall it is, I guess. So I want to cut this down. I'm going to cut off about 1 inch from the bottom half. And then I'm also going to open that opening up, make it a little bit steeper of an angle so that it's got more of an open mouth. And then here you see me just taking off the bottom half there. And I'm also going to take off a little bit of the top, kind of alleviate those corners, make them a little bit more round so I can then take it over to the oscillating belt sander and kind of shape it and smooth it out, make it pretty, because I mean, like I said earlier, it is just a shop jig, but I kind of want it to look nice. I don't want it to be just a piece of junk. I mean, I like stuff to look good. I know you do too. So as you can see here, I've got the 2 mag switches now installed. The mouth is much wider, and then I've thrown a couple screws there into the mag port to hold everything down. And then I'm going to take it over to the oscillating spindle sander, like I said, shape it up, get it nice and clean, round over everything, get it nice and pretty, get the edges refined, just make it look good. Because, I mean, everybody likes stuff to look good. I mean, I do. I'm sure you do. So once I get that all nice and cleaned up, I like how it looks, looking good. I take it over, and it's time to measure up roughly how I want the plexiglass to sit on top. So I just kind of have this scrap piece of plexiglass from some random project earlier. I can't even remember what I had this for, but I'm glad I had it, and it was the perfect piece for it. I'm just gonna take a Sharpie and kind of roughly mark out around the mag port there, and then also make some lines vertically on each side so then I can take it over to the bandsaw and cut it out. So once I figure out kind of where I want this, I'm gonna make some marks and then grab my straight edge so I can get kind of a straight line on the sides. I mean, again, none of this really matters a whole lot. I mean, in the end, it's just a shop jig to collect dust, but I mean, I want it to look halfway decent. So I'm trying to make some straight edges, straight lines, and then I can take it over to the bandsaw and cut it out on, both those angles. And you know what? I need to work on my bandsaw skills because I cannot really freehand a straight line very well. The one was decent, but my second cut, man, I mean, it was kind of a struggle bus. Really, really curvy, nowhere near straight. But after I got that curve cut out, went back to the jig, and then I threw in all of the screws that would hold down the mag port into the top layer there of that plywood. I think I used 4 screws. I mean, that's kind of, doesn't really matter, but then I got it all secure and then secured both mag switches. Then I could put on the plexiglass, wipe it off, because, man, I don't know what it is about plexiglass, but it collects dust like white on rice. Crazy. To attach the plexiglass to the jig, I decided to use Total Boat's UV curing resin. And I thought this was a genius move. I put 2 small beads down each side and then pushed the plexiglass into those beads. It smeared that resin out, and then I could use the UV light to cure the resin through the clear plexiglass. It only takes like 30 seconds to a minute, and then the resin is completely cured. Great bond to both the plexiglass and the plywood. And look, you can lift the whole jig by that plexi within like a minute. No time at all. So now it's time to get it over on my router table, give it a test, turn the mag switches on. She locks down great. Attach the dust hose to the mag port, and it was time to test it out with a neck blank. And I gotta say, it works really, really well. My aim, however, needs some improvement. Depending on where you place this dust port is where you need to aim all of your dust chips. And one thing I actually learned with these compression flush trim bits is that they like to throw chips both up and down because of the up and down cutting action that the blades have. So I kind of need to learn where everything needs to go, both the dust port, where my stock needs to go. But man, that tabletop is so much cleaner than it was before when I was just freehand routing willy-nilly with no dust port. So does this make a difference? Absolutely. Can it be improved? Absolutely. But as she sits now, I'm going to use it, and it will definitely help with my dust collection whenever I'm freehand routing. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up down below and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys in the next one.